Welcome to the Cracking the Growth Code podcast, where we explore practical growth and leadership insights to take you and your organization to the next level. I'm your host, Matt Zembruski. I'm pleased to have as my guest today, Matt Schmidt, CEO and founder of Peoplelogic. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Excited to be here.
Really glad to have you here, and I'm really excited to introduce you and your company, Matt, to our audience. I've had a chance to look briefly into what you're up to. It's really exciting. There's a lot of synergies between what your company is about and the things that I'm passionate about in the space. And the name of your company says it, a lot of it there, Peoplelogic. Can you just take a minute or two and just introduce Peoplelogic, your role there to our listeners, let them know how your company is starting to make an impact in today's marketplace?
Yeah, that's a great segue into that, and certainly the cracking the growth code is very much aligned with our mission, right? And so Peoplelogic really exists to help unleash the potential of every scaling organization through having better insights, right? And so we do that by providing a set of tools for companies at every step of the journey as they're scaling, from just starting your processes and needing to be better about strategic planning to needing to be proactive about how your team is connected and engaged and performing, right? And so through that, we are building what we call the AI for more efficient scaling, and starting to have an impact on those organizations really squarely in that Series A to pre-IPO, and starting to really help companies that are struggling today to keep scaling and growing, because how we run businesses and how we operate has changed so much over the past 5 years. The peaks and valleys that used to be spread out to every couple of years are now compressed, and during the course of a day we could have massive swings, and that wreaks havoc on how we should be planning, and yet most companies aren't planning very effectively today for the future, and they haven't changed how they plan in response to the fact that actually the future of work has changed.
Very much so. That's it. That's a great overview. And to say the AI, I wrote it down, AI for more efficient scaling. And can you provide an example just to bring it down to sort of the context? You mentioned about planning, some of the challenges with, and you're helping, sounds like you're helping your clients and your the small high growth companies more quickly adapt to the pace of some of the changes that have taken place in the marketplace. You just give an example of maybe one of your products or services that you offer.
Yeah, that's a great great add-on to that, right? So, for us, what we've realized actually is that everything's interconnected, right? Both inside the organization, your people team, your sales team, your finance team, your engineering team, they're all interconnected, right? And yet we still kind of operate in silos and we still plan in silos, right? But more importantly, externally, your business is actually interconnected to a lot of other factors that impact you without you actually ever having any control over that or foreknowledge. And so, when we talk about the AI for efficient scaling, it's about helping you see around the corner, right? And so that might be to give you a heads up that there's a geopolitical issue starting to happen that's going to have an impact on your customers, right? Or your customers' customers. Or that the interest rate changes are ultimately going to impact private investors, which is going to impact your ability to raise again 8 months from now, right? And so these are very real challenges that ultimately we're working on solving. When we talk about the internal use cases, we really define it as a people and performance management solution, right? That's everything, and part of where while that may sound like a lot of other HR tech solutions, it's really part of what makes it different is the intelligence underneath it. So we help you with everything from OKRs to one-on-ones to performance reviews to people analytics, right? And accelerate your ability to use all those different mechanisms with the understanding of how everything's connected within your organization. Straight from that flow of work, the cloud tools that exist, understanding how your team is really structured rather than how they say they're structured.
Yeah, it's when I looked on your website earlier, Matt, I was really impressed with I'm a very visual learner, so I was really impressed with a lot of the visual interconnections that you show about how you can leverage the existing footprint of a company today. Seemed like it could even apply to even large companies. I mean, I know you talked about pre-IPO, but it sounds like a lot of the bigger companies could leverage your products and services as
And
well.
they probably should. And yeah, those size organizations are often, um, you know, much more capable of throwing people at them.
Mm,
And and also have a different set of challenges and the pace that they grow and those types of things, right?
yeah,
The narrowing our focus down to, what we define as scaling organizations gives us a whole set of really meaty problems to solve for, right? As these
yeah.
organizations just deal with so much more chaos, so much faster, right? And startups love to find a place where there's lots of chaos for us to dig our teeth into.
Exactly. That's fantastic. Let's shift over to you. What gets you out of bed? You're CEO, founder of your company. I've worked at startups before, and it's a fun vibe. If you're like that vibe, I love it. A lot of people in the agile space, I think, are very startup friendly as well because we're always wearing multiple hats. We thrive in chaos, as you're saying. So for you, what motivates you? What are you really passionate about? Like, just you talked about the company and what you're doing, which is amazing in the market. What motivates you on a personal level? Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning to help the world, help your company?
Yeah, I think you really nailed it there. It's about helping the world, right? And having bootstrapped my last company to a successful exit, I'm motivated by helping other companies that are going through that achieve the same outcome, right? And if you think about the statistics that we see around venture-backed companies, where there's a ton of great companies and maybe they can execute really well, but the odds are not in your favor as a venture-backed company.
Mm.
You're, one of 10 that might succeed or have a wildly successful outcome. And by that, successful for your shareholders, successful for the founders, right? All the things that we measure success on. And so, for me, it's about, helping those companies achieve that outcome that can really be life changing for the founders, and improving that from 1 in 10 to maybe 2 in 10 or 3 in 10, right? A meaningful percentage. And then the other piece that gets me up is just my team. We have a great team. It's probably the best team that I've ever put together at this stage, and a lot of them now have been with me for 2 or 3 years of the journey, or my CTO my long-suffering CTO who has been with me for now probably 12 years. So it's the team is part of what gets me up every day, and is part of really I am I exist more as the problem solver and the strategist, but they're the ones that are really making the difference.
Yeah, I like the way you said that too, because being an agile professional myself, I always think of with an agile mindset. What you just shared for what motivates you is very customer centric, right? Like how can your company better serve the customer, and how can you better serve your team that's delivering the value to the customer, right? So I love the way you describe that. I'm very much the same. I get motivated by the people that I'm working with and by helping them move forward more quickly, right, in their careers and in their organizations. Um, let's talk about what success looks like. So you're on a fast track startup, with where you're going. You have experience in the startup space. What is, if you were to paint a picture of success for your company, what does that look like? Oh, you mentioned OKRs and things like that. It could be something specific, like where we want to double our number of clients, or what does success look like for you, like 12 months from now?
12 months from now, so we're right in the middle of raising a seed round. So that all the success metrics that come with doing that. And so but really for me, it's I would like us to dramatically increase the number of customers that we've got, right?
Mm,
that's probably because for us, our impact on the world is measured by the number of companies that we help, right? And so, that to do that effectively, we've got to be able to have great products, and we've got to be able to deliver value to the customers that are paying us, and we've got to be able to acquire new customers. And if we stay focused on delivering great value to those people, and continuing to provide additional products as they grow, then ultimately we earn the right to have success.
Yeah, that makes really, really good sense. And from an outsider's perspective, um, uh, an analyst would like look at your company and say, "Oh, they've doubled their number of clients, right? So they're growing." That's part of what you do. But I know from your role, what you've just shared is you're also passionate about the significance of the impact that you're making with each client.
Mm-hmm.
As your are you is your company from a growth perspective? Um, just to clarify the answer a little bit, are you thinking more about expanding your customer base, or and this is probably a percentage answer, versus going deeper with your current customers? Like, are you trying to like build your product suite out for some of the core clients that you have today? Is that like 50-50, like new
Yeah,
customers
it's a
versus going
both
deeper?
and, right? It's a both and on that
Yep.
one, right? We need to, at this stage, there's, the size of our market is essentially infinite, right? There's always a number, there's new growth and scaling companies that come into the start of that all the time, right? And then they kind of grow out of it, or they die, or whatever happens at the high end. And
Mm-hmm.
so, that allows us to have a nearly endless level of potential new customers, particularly globally, right? We're still seeing a lot of growth in this stage of company that we target around the world. And whether that's Europe or South America or India or others, we don't really make much of a distinction
Mm.
in who we target. And so, that's acquiring new customers is certainly one aspect of it. The other aspect, absolutely, as you mentioned, is growing with additional products to our existing customers and converting some of the early freemium customers that we had as well. And so, those, in my mind, those things go hand in hand, because we acquire new customers by having additional products that we can offer depending on the stage that they're in. Right. So today we
Mm-hmm.
might capture you at the very early stage of growth. But as we develop products that fit later, then we can go into a broader set of stakeholders within the C-suite and the size of organization, and offer them something unique, and then maybe to expand beyond that.
Mm. That makes a lot of sense. That makes really good sense. And so going forward, if we think as you mold the clay, you get your seed round, right? And it's I know it's always a lot going on. CEO and founder of a startup. What are your thoughts on that? I guess what are the biggest challenges to that, creating that successful vision that you see in the marketplace today?
Yeah, there's two things. One obviously is, we have to execute really well, and particularly in this macroeconomic climate, you have to execute really, really well, right? You cannot afford missteps.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's part one. The part two is, somewhat out of our control, but is actually part of the whole reason why we're building this. And that's the macro environment is tough, right? There's a lot less funding that's happening. There's a lot less spending within, at least for, new providers within businesses. There's uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
that's impacting everybody's confidence in, whether they're going to have a job, or whether their business is still going to be around, or, um, what the eventual outcome, even though we see pockets of um, great results like what we just saw from Microsoft's last quarter. Those results are not necessarily translating down to the rest of the people in the space.
Mm. Yeah, it takes time, and you're right that the macro economic conditions right now are certainly a major factor. across, especially across the U.S. Right now. It's been challenging for a lot of people, and so what do you think? I mean, obviously the economic, we're not going to talk about overcoming that challenge there. But what do you mentioned about in the uncertainty of the market, right? And being in as an agile coach and leadership coach, etc. There's a lot of the uncertainty that's in the marketplace today. Like the pace of change is faster. There's a lot of uncertain outcomes, a lot of uncertain, unknown factors that are always coming into play. So I think like this, and I work like this with leaders and teams. And I'm just curious from your perspective, in that environment of uncertainty that we live in right now, with a high pace of change, what are some things that you do within your company, your culture, or your leadership style to help to help keep the ship steady in these rough waters, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great one, and certainly far from perfect on it, as my team would probably attest to. Um, you know, my ultimate goal is to try to be as transparent as possible about where we are as a business, and how much runway we've got, and how much where we need to execute, and the how we're selling and what's in the pipeline, how we're executing on roadmap, right? All those things. And so transparency certainly helps. There's always a delicate balance there, because while founders are certainly particularly comfortable existing in a state of stress, you can't create fear, right? Because too much fear leads you to lock up, and prevents execution. So we balance that. The other one is, we certainly do try to be agile as a team, right? And so we respond to the market conditions. We take a measure of whether the things that we're doing are having an impact. We iterate quite a lot and quickly, and put that information back into our feedback loop to say, okay, do we need to make a course correction, or do we need to stop doing this whole project? And through that, then we are able to remain responsive when we need to, right? And that usually helps the team. So it's a mix, right? It's a mix of being transparent. It's a mix of just listening to the team and treating them as humans. That's a big part of our culture. Is it is, for better or worse, the human part of it comes into play at this stage. And whether somebody is struggling outside of work is you have to understand that and be responsive and be human about how you respond to it. And so we are I think we do a really good job of that, and in giving people the space and the time that they need to really be their best selves, and bring that best self back to work as we try to grow. And then on top of that, everybody is an owner. That's that's another big component of it, is that everybody has meaningful ownership in the company today, and their success is tied to the company's success, and ultimately that's a sort of third component of what gets me up every day, is for to allow the team to feel the success that I have felt in the past, and to be able to have a meaningful exit and a meaningful positive outcome, because it's a feeling unlike anything else.
Yeah, it definitely is. I can imagine from your perspective, and I love where we got to in the conversation, how you're talking about, you mentioned about your team's agile, and that makes sense. I think a lot of startups have to be agile just to survive today. But I love how you talked about the necessity of that for a small company or a startup, because in the larger corporations that I consult with, I view, if everybody could have the same perspective as you and your company in those agile organizations, like where they all feel ownership, they all feel like they have their team matters, like their team or their group of teams matter. That's a mindset that's tricky to plug into the large organizations, but when that mindset's there, it works very well. So I think it's great that you have it wired in where the team success or each individual success there ultimately is the contributes to the success of the organization. Everybody has skin in the game. Everybody can have the upside.
Yeah, and that, that accountability, that transparency, the ability to see how the things that you're working on impact the organization, those, and how it all feeds up together is that's so important in having an organization function well, whether it's a startup or whether it's a bigger scaling organization. And that's where a lot of our newer customers come to us wanting to have that be something in their organization, right? They come to us for our tools to be able to help them at the early stages create that visibility, that accountability, that that understanding, and carry that through, whether it's through to their performance conversations, or whether it's to one-on-ones, or whether it's just to your overall strategic planning. That's a critical piece as companies are scaling.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And the accountability and transparency that's woven into your products and into your relationship with your clients and your customers is so important. As we wrap up, Matt, I'd love to get top 3 leadership tips that you have to share with our audience. Things that you found are successful throughout your career and that really matter today. Top 3 tips for leaders.
Yeah, and that's I'll be the first to admit that that leadership is a journey and something that didn't necessarily come naturally to me. So, I think the first I would say is to meet people where they are, particularly in this environment, and particularly with the younger generation. That becomes a super important component of it. The second is, I would go with, encourage or show the behavior that you would like your people to emulate, right? Whether that's, operating transparently or operating honestly, I think that's super critical. And then the third one I think would be to, always operate with a growth mindset and always be learning, right? And if you can model that and you can continue to show curiosity, that'll carry through to the people that report to you and that are around you.
I love those tips, Matt. They're so good with meet people where they are, lead by example, and have a continuous growth mindset. That's just so powerful. So those are all great tips. Hopefully our audience is going to put all those into practice right away. But thank you very much, Matt, for being here and for your time, for your energy in your schedule, for being here and sharing your insights with our audience. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely, Matt. Thanks so much for having me on. I enjoyed it.